Let's get more on this now with Nawied Jabarkhyl from Dubai. Nawied, look, we've been hearing for quite some time now that Saudi Aramco might be delaying the foreign portion of its listing, but does it look like it may be shelved altogether?
Well, Azar, the concerns about a delay are mainly because this is a listing that the Saudi government said would take place this year. We're nearing the end of the first quarter and there are still no concrete details on what, when and indeed where it will take place. In terms of the foreign part of the listing, according to sources we're speaking to here, that may be delayed into sometime next year. That's become a real possibility. But the other part of the listing, the domestic one on the Saudi stock exchange, there's still a likelihood of that taking place sometime in 2018. And we've been hearing from Saudi officials in recent weeks that the domestic listing could be the focus now. At this stage, still no real reason to think the IPO will be scrapped altogether as hard, particularly because of how much work has already gone on behind the scenes now, and also how important it could be for the future of Saudi Arabia's economy.
Well, let's pick up on where you left off there. If the foreign part of the IPO is delayed, let's say, for the moment, how is that going to affect Saudi Arabia's plans to diversify its economy away from oil? It's just going to kind of push things further down the road, isn't it?
Well, it will have a significant impact, do you think? I mean, the Aramco IPO, most importantly, is the centerpiece of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's economic reform plans known as Vision 2030. So politically, he's resting a lot on it, but financially as well, as the Crown Prince has set a valuation of about $2 trillion. That's what he's got in mind. So if you take 5% of that, about $100 billion he hopes to raise. Saudi Arabia's budget deficit last year was $61 billion, just to put it into perspective. So the country needs the money. But perhaps more importantly, Aramco really is the most attractive company Saudi Arabia has to offer international investors. It's the world's largest oil exporter. And so this IPO could be a catalyst for more privatization and indeed more foreign investments, which the kingdom is hoping to achieve in the future.
You say that, sorry, Nawied, you say that the kingdom needs the money. And yes, you're right, the budget deficit was around $60 billion. That has come down, though, from about $100 billion. And the projections are for it to come down even further this year as the oil price recovers from when the original Aramco IPO plan was put in place. Has the incentive to list this company in its original form, in the original form of the plan, has that incentive gone away as the oil prices recovered?
Well, as you say, the budget deficit's been coming down, so financially, yes, it has to some degree. But if you look at this year's budget, for example, the Saudis actually want to increase government spending, and that's largely thanks to a higher oil price. So it's the higher oil price in the past year that's proving positive for the Saudi economy. But the indication here is that the IPO is something that Saudi Arabia very much still wants to happen, really. It's about offering local Saudis the chance to own a part of the crown jewel of the economy. So yes, a higher oil price has bought the government more time to think about this. But essentially, as we've been reporting here from the region, what's happened in 2014, the shock of the oil price has been a wake-up call for governments here, and they don't want to be vulnerable to that sort of volatility again. So that's why this IPO is something that they want to move ahead with.
Very quickly, Nawied, we're almost out of time, but Mohammed bin Salman is in the US. He's meeting Donald Trump. What's on the agenda for that meeting in terms of the economy?
Well, the IPO, you can bet they'll talk about that. President Trump took to Twitter to publicly call for the listing to take place in New York. But I think there are much more important political issues, perhaps, that they want to discuss. Iran will be high on the agenda. Both leaders have spoken about Iran's destabilizing force in the region, as they call it. Also, the war in Yemen and as well the disputes between Saudi Arabia and its Gulf neighbor, Qatar. But above all, I expect both of the leaders to come out of this meeting to reaffirm their support for both countries. At the end of the day, Saudi Arabia is the key ally for the US, and I think Donald Trump is going to reinforce that message once they step out of the meeting at the White House.
Nawied Jabarkhyl in Dubai, thank you very much indeed.